Radar Update. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. On our Heavens Declare sheet, we talk about the different zones. There's the green zone, which demonstrably shows Jupiter within the hind feet line concept. And I've mentioned before that the orange zone does not mean Jupiter is out of the hind foot. It only means that it is an arguable gap between the lion and woman concepts. There is a blend between the green and the orange. And where we are right now on August 20th, Jupiter is still in the hind foot, but at the very edge of it. We're out of the green zone, we're out of the strong radar zone, but that's all. It doesn't mean it's out of the foot. So it's still in the hind foot today, and keep this in mind going forward. There is a lot we do not know about this orange zone. It is an arguable gap. Different arguments can be made and different things presented in this gap. As we go forward and we learn more, we will have more radar updates. We will update you with what we find out. But this orange zone, we have told you before, there is an unknown factor, but we have been able to verify that for the 20th, today Jerusalem, Jupiter was still in one of the celestial charts. And it's still in the average chart leg concept, blending several of the charts together. And that only combined 4. If we had better access to more charts, especially higher resolution charts, we'd be able to have a much better average mean concept of the chart leg. But just with what you can find in 5 minutes, we were able to put together an average chart leg concept. So it's still in that average concept. And this is what I mean by it being in an arguable gap. It's starting to get fuzzy because we're starting to have to look at the average chart leg concept. But right now today we can still see at least on one of the charts, it's still even in on that too as well. So we have 3 different things telling us and pointing us to that yes, it's still in the hind leg, but it's getting really close to the end. So again, we're in the arguable gap, but still within the hind leg. We still have plenty to lead us to believe that today at least it is still in the chart leg concept. And this is Exhibit C that we are referencing, the chart that it's in today. And notice how this is one of the charts too that it is in that even has the conceptual border that closely follows the concept. And that's what we've seen on a lot of the antique charts, is that the concept previous to the international borders being defined, the borders follows the concept. So all we know is the border is going to be somewhere between the concept of the hind leg and the actual Virgo concept and stars too. And you can see on different concept art on antique charts that Virgo's artwork concept comes very close to the stars there. It lines up very close to it. So we know she doesn't go much beyond the actual stars there. We are in an arguable gap. So keep that in mind. Moving forward, we are going to have more updates as we get more information. Is another example of how the borders for a long time just followed the concept art. So again, we are in one chart today, but we're still in the average chart leg concept, and we're still within the conceptual border from one of them as well. And this is what we're doing. We are watching. I don't pretend to have all the answers. We give you a radar update as we get more information. The Bible tells us to watch. It doesn't say you're going to figure out the story. It doesn't say you're going to figure out the whole puzzle. No. He says watch. There's going to be bumps in the learning process. There's going to be steps in the learning process. But Christ wants us to watch. He wants to come back and find out who's watching and looking for him. Not who has figured it out. We're not going to figure it out. But who's trying to watch. And that's why I started making these videos, to share with you what I see on my radar as I'm on my learning journey, as I watch. And as I learn more about Scripture and the pictures being shown right now, I'll share it with you. We can hold hands and go forward together as we watch and as we learn and as we get updated and as we explore and go forward out to meet the bridegroom. So we will continue to watch, knowing that we do not have all the answers. But we have seen so much already that it would be foolish not to continue going forward. We will continue to watch. And we find an incredible story and tapestry rehearsed in the heavens right now, the celestial signs. And there is so much that I could talk about with these celestial signs and how it's referenced throughout Revelation and even the Bible too as well. This is a critical part. This is the signs we are told to look up and we will see. the sign of the coming of the Son of Man that's going to be seen during the Revelation is this sign that we're looking at right now, the Shiloh prophecy. They didn't pay attention to it the first time, so they're going to see it again. When Satan messes with time, when he's allowed to mess with time for 3.5 periods of time, this is what's going to be repeated, the Shiloh prophecy. It's going to culminate in the Revelation 12 sign, but you can't even see the Revelation 12 sign on that day because it's covered with the sun. That's even mentioned in the prophecy. But Christ told his disciples during the tribulation, people will be able to look up and they will be able to see the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. It's not going to be a one-day thing that's only going to happen within a few hours like the Revelation 12 sign. No, that's the culmination. That's the whistle blowing. The sign of the coming of the Son of Man that they're going to be able to see is what we're seeing right now, the story being rehearsed of the one who sprang out of Judah and who was born of a woman. That is the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. We are seeing it right now, and we have seen the Star of Bethlehem happen right at that sign, pointing us to it that the King, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, is coming. He's not coming as the man-child again. He's coming as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And he's going to gather his people before he gets back to the woman on the celestial clock. And that's how Revelation starts, with the celestial clock at the Lion of the tribe of Judah still. Now, I'm in the process of updating the Heavenly Story poster to include the Revelation 12 sign and how it correlates with all of this, but that's going to take a little bit more time. But I am in the process of laying that out, but I'll definitely let you know when that is available and updated on the Google Drive. There is an updated version there now already, but this new enhanced version will take a little bit longer to finish out. Now, in our last video, we talked about how Purim and the Fast of Esther were tied together, how the Fast of Esther is commemorated at Purim time. And we talked about how it was a 3-day period directly opposite where we are right now. And since we see all these stories tying together, we need to take that into consideration. We see especially the bride pattern as she gets ready to go to the king's house. So we must take this interaction of the king and the queen, which happened on this exact same time as the Star of Bethlehem median anniversary. We should take it into consideration along with everything else we've been looking at. And so that's what we've done. And we showed this in the last video, but here I'm giving you an overview and just walking you through some parts of it again. And we talked about how the Star of Bethlehem median average pointed directly toward Purim, but specifically the Fast of Esther, which is the first day of the 3. And that's very important because if we advance 3 days to the end, that points downward, and you can see advancing 3 days brings us right to the 19th, 20th, the border right between those. There's going to be variance because of time zones and the plus or minus fuzz factor. Keep that in mind. All we know is it's right around here somewhere, but there is a fuzz factor. But advancing 3 days would bring us to the late 19th. And when we zoom in so you can see better, the midpoint of the Star of Bethlehem is pointed toward the first day of Purim, the Fast of Esther, which precedes Purim. So that connected to the anniversary that we observed just a few days ago here, but then advancing 3 days into the future with the full Esther pattern just from that mark. Again, there's a fuzz factor, so really just consider the 3 days there, the concept of it. Then when we go down to where we are, and of course the midpoint median average, plus or minus, would be right there, and that's what we looked at a few days ago. Then we advance the Esther pattern 3 days, which is the same pattern that is on the other side of the calendar. 3 days are over there too. So we're not throwing in something that's not here. Advance it 3 days for the Esther pattern, and that brought us just with these visual lineups to late 19th. And again, there's a fuzz factor. Plus or minus a day, we don't know. Plus we averaged out the anniversary date. So there's a little shift that we don't know, and with time zones, we don't know. All we know is it's right around here somewhere that it would fall out at. So don't get caught up on necessarily days, on specific dates. All we know is it's right around here. And right now, we are at the approximate end of the 3rd day. Those days are in the past. Or we are right at the end of them. That's all we know. We're right somewhere around the end of this 3-day pattern that followed the Star of Bethlehem anniversary median average. And on this chart, I drew in August 20th, the green, now that we definitely proved that Jupiter would still be in the hind leg on that day too as well. So we know we have just passed or currently passing the Esther 3 days, and with just a little bit of time still after that. And of course, we have the ongoing parable of the 10 virgins pattern going on right now too, with the warning already gone out several days ago, behold the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. And then to see on top of that, the Esther going before the king and touching the scepter at the same time, parallel on this calendar. That is just amazing to see how it lines up right now. There is absolutely no way I could make this stuff up. It is so incredible to see the precision and the symmetry of the tapestry of redemption being woven, a beautiful story being told that only he could tell. Now, this Esther 3 days is very important to consider what happened at the end of that time when she went to the Lion King and touched the scepter, and what that beautiful picture was of the mercy and grace extended at that time. But then also what happened right after that in conjunction with that. Esther 5:1. Now it came to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on a royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of his house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near, and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine. Okay, let's just take a note of this. She was going to the king's house, and that's where the king sat on his throne. And notice that she went before the king at the end of the 3rd day. She fasted for 3 days, and at the end of that 3rd day, she went to the king, touched the scepter, and gave her request. And the invitation was to come to the banquet that day, at the end of the 3rd day. So we're seeing a quick progression. There is no delay here. The banquet wasn't several days later. It was that day. And so this is very interesting when we consider that what happened that day? They were invited to a banquet that she had already prepared. It was already prepared. She went out and invited the king to a banquet that was already ready. And if you're thinking and awake, you're probably seeing several parallels with the bride of Christ. We are expecting to go to a banquet. Those who are watching and living in light of Christ's return are going to a banquet, and Jesus Christ himself will gird himself and personally serve the servants who are faithful and watching. It is already prepared too as well, and it is in the king's house. Which reminds us of John 14:1. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. I go to prepare a place for you. And this is a picture we see rehearsed right now of Esther going before the Lion King, touching the scepter, having grace and mercy extended to her, but also the invitation to a private banquet where the king and queen are going to be, right at the end of this 3-day pattern. We don't know exactly where this 3-day pattern falls out, but it should catch our attention that the banquet, the invitation to a private banquet with the king and queen in the king's house, happens right at the end of this. And we see that there's just a little bit of time left still on the Shiloh prophecy. At the same time that the parable of the 10 virgins picture is also being rehearsed. With the warning already gone out, behold the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. We're already expecting to go to the king's house. We are going to meet the bridegroom, but we're going to meet the scepter too as well. So many beautiful pictures coming together right now that were there all this time. We're just now having our attention drawn to them and pointed out for us. When we consider the Star of Bethlehem, which told us the king was coming, and how It pointed the first median average to Purim, reminded us of Esther and her time of purification and preparation when she went to the king's house. But then at the same time, at the same place, also pointing to the picture when she touched the scepter and went to a private banquet with the king at the king's house. Those two pictures are on top of each other, combined at that spot. And then when we look at where we are now, the median anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of the Star Bethlehems. So we've come full circle to where we are now, and we've seen 2 periods of 6 months and 6 months, just like in the Esther pattern. But that's brought us full circle to right now, where the Esther pattern is rehearsed, the fast of Esther is rehearsed, her going before the king and touching the scepter is rehearsed right now too, and we find ourselves 3 days after that pattern, right already expecting the king from the Star Bethlehem signs, and we've already heard the call, "Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him." This picture is so beautiful and so incredible to see. And it is humbling that God is rehearsing and bringing all this to our attention because He wants us to know how much He loves us and how He wants us to shine bright as a bride and to make ourselves ready. And how He wants us to know. He wants us to see the day approaching. He wants us to see our redemption drawing nigh. He loves us that much. And when we consider this pattern, we see reminders of 2 bride types. One who made herself ready to go to the king's house. And right now where we are reminded of the parable of the 10 virgins, which pictures the church. And how we should be shining bright and trimming things off of our life and purifying and perfuming our life and making ourselves ready for our king, for our bridegroom. But then we're also reminded that in the story of Esther, we're told that she had 7 maids who helped her get ready, which also reminds us that is what's referenced in the parable of the 10 virgins, too, as well. Both of these stories, on opposite sides of the cyclical calendar, are mirrors of each other. One is an Old Testament version of the New Testament parable. They're both about virgins preparing for a wedding. This is no accidental lineup. This is being rehearsed on purpose. When we consider that the church is a collective term for all of us individuals, once we put our faith and trust in the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross, we become part of the church. We become part of the collective body. We are all the bridesmaids. We are all the virgins. We are all getting ready for the wedding to our bridegroom. We collectively are the bride. And our job, just like the maids helped Esther get ready, Hebrews 10:24, and let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. In the parable of the 10 virgins, they knew the bridegroom was coming. They didn't know exactly when, they just knew he was coming. And likewise, we will see the day approaching if we are watching and paying attention. So as we see that day approaching, we should be encouraging each other and helping each other get ready, lift each other up in prayer, ask for strength and grace for each other. And we should provoke unto love and to good works at this time, and so much the more as we see the day approaching, and especially now that we have heard the trumpet call at midnight, "Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him." 2 beautiful pictures being rehearsed right now at this time. We have heard the trumpet call. Let us review these patterns. Let us take them to heart. Let us see how late the hour is. Let us rise up. Let us trim our lamps. And let us go out to meet our bridegroom. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Serve Christ, first and highest above all else. Maranatha.